I'm like, that
Oh,
scared me. Hello.
yes, give me too.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty great.
Good. Good, good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I like your background to start out with. Those are
Oh,
really
thank
cool.
you.
Yeah.
I have way too many die casts. This became a unfortunate obsession of mine. I say unfortunate because they cost so much money. But um yeah, I had to have at least something car related in the background for everything I do. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I saw you went to the Daytona 500. How was that?
Oh my gosh, it was the most rewarding, stressful, and exhausting experience I've ever had at a racetrack. And it was cool just to interview like all the drivers from ARCA all the way to Cup. And literally Wednesday is a full media day. So I think all the media members only ate breakfast that morning and that's it. Because literally from noon until like 7 at night, you're just interviewing drivers straight through that entire time. And then that evening you have qualifying. So we didn't get home until like I want to say like 3 in the morning. And then you got up the next day and you were back at the track by like 9. So it was nonstop for Daytona, but it was an incredible experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, did you want to start off by saying anything, or did you want to go straight into questions?
Well, I'll kind of just explain a little bit about like who I am, what I do. But if you guys don't know me, my name's Taylor Kitchen. And I have my own media outlet called Above the Yellow Line Media. I manage about 10 motorsports content creators, and within that, we all have our own shows and our own content that we do. And mine is Above the Yellow Line that I've had since 2021, and I talk about NASCAR. That's kind of my bread and butter and what I do on a daily basis. And through that, I also work with a company called Racing America. They're owned by the team owners of NASCAR. So, like, Rick Hendrick, Jeff Gordon's part of this. A bunch of the team owners own this whole group. And with them, I am an on air talent interviewing the drivers, and I also help run their socials. So, that's a little bit more about, I guess, what I do. So, working with the NASCAR and the short track level.
That's so cool.
Cool.
Thanks. It's a lot. It is really cool. It's like the coolest job ever. So,
So, how did you get interested in motorsports and NASCAR?
the funny thing is, like, I've had motorsports around me like my entire life, and I just ignored it because I thought it was dumb. Like for lack of a better word, like I just didn't really care. And my grandma was the one that got me into it. She always had the races on during the race weekend, and we were told to never touch the remote when we were over at her house on a Sunday because it was NASCAR day. Like we're not changing the channel. And I don't know what sparked me to like actually actively watch and pay attention to a race, but I know in 2016 I watched my very first race from start to finish. It was an Xfinity Series race at Texas that Kyle Busch won, and after I really paid attention to it, I was like, "This is actually really neat." I played sports growing up. I did like tennis, basketball, soccer, competitive dance. I did fencing. Like that's a crazy one, but I did. And just nothing was like motorsports to me. So they took me to my first race in 2017 with my siblings, and I was just hooked. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's loud. It's a crazy environment, and um, yeah. And then from that point on, I just was like, I want to be in this industry. I just don't know how, but that was the love of motorsports. That's what kicked it off.
I love that. So like looking back on your college experience, what clubs or experiences did you like participate in that really contributed to your success today?
Oh, I love that question. So I loved my college. I know you all are in college right now. But I went to Bowling Green State University. It's up near Toledo, Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio. But I was involved in our what we call the Falcon Sports Network or Falcon Media, which is basically our whole student media organization. And during my time there, we really started diving into more intensive like sports media stuff because we got a whole bunch of freshmen in, or like my class and the classes that came in after me were really wanting to focus on like sports media, broadcasting, radio. And so since I left college, my school's really put in more effort into kind of elevating their program there. But I was able to run like the board during our sports weekends, and knowing that I'm somebody who really knows motorsports, and that's kind of it. Jumping into other sports and really calling them like volleyball was very new to me. Hockey, I was a ringside reporter on air, like on TV. And 2 weeks before that, I knew nothing about hockey. So my friends and everyone that was part of that whole group was like, okay, we're going to give you the 101. And being part of that organization allowed me to, learn other sports, feel confident in front of the camera and feel confident on a live broadcast. So that was really cool. But I think for me, being part of that organization and then being part of our news organization as well, BG24, that's where we did like our live news broadcast each week where we put together like news packages, VOSOS and things like that, helped me kind of feel prepared, even if I wasn't covering motorsports with those organizations.
Gotcha. That sounds so fun, actually. Okay, so where, what was your first job in motorsports and what was your first day like?
Oh gosh. So what's interesting about, I guess, my career is I never have officially worked with a company. I've always been kind of contracted out. So within the media space for motorsports or even just in general, a lot of the times you're going to be freelance or contracted to another company. In where I'm at in my career and even to my peers, it's very rare where you are hired on with Fox to be a journalist or NBC or NASCAR to be a journalist. I did go through the hiring process with NASCAR. I just didn't feel like it was the right fit for me at the time. And with that, I was like, you know what, I'm going to dig in and kind of create my own company and see what I can do. So day one for me in the industry really was just day one of like having my phone out and just recording a podcast on my phone. It was awkward, weird. I had no presentation skills whatsoever. I just talked into my phone. And then I posted it on YouTube and I was like, you know what, this probably isn't going to go anywhere, but like, at least I'm trying to build community, right? My whole thing was I wanted to build community. And then I got better and better at it as I kind of learned, the different ways I should probably be talking. What information do people want to hear about that I could provide? And so from there, it piqued the interest of other motorsport media outlets that were like, hey, I like your content. Would you be interested in putting it here? And so that's kind of how I folded into different outlets and things like that. So I guess a story I can say about a first day on a job truly is when I was working with Racing America, and I still am, but it was the first time I was doing a show for them. And I was able to interview a Cup Series driver after a race weekend for the very first time. It was Harrison Burton after Wood Brothers' 100th win. And I was so anxious because I'm like, this is my first time in front of like a big camera, holding the microphone, interviewing a driver. And like, I didn't want to mess up. It was a historic event. And I was super anxious. We were there for like their team congratulatory like meeting and things like that. But ultimately, like when the camera turned on, like something clicked and I was good to go. But beforehand, I was so scared. I was so scared. But that was like a good, like truly like first day on the job doing what I currently do now. So there's so many facets to my career and what I do, whether it's in front of the camera, behind the camera, covering a race at the racetrack, which is its own beast in general. But it all started at my kitchen table.
Oh, I love that. That's such like a good story. Um, so my next question is, who was your mentor if you had one, and what was their advice to you?
Ooh, so what's really cool about working in motorsports, and you all probably know this even through your group, but it really does become a family. It's once you get into it, it is a small group of people that you are going to see every single weekend. Like, I have no clue how many races I'm covering this year. I just know it's more than I ever have before. I covered 8 last year. But every time you walk into the media center, you're seeing the same people every single week. You talk about your family, your life. You're saying, hey, I might not have grabbed this quote and I kind of need it for a story. Can I grab one? And you're like, sure. And you build camaraderie. But when I was trying to fold into motorsports and try to figure out, career wise, what can I do? I would say I had 2 big mentors. One was Rob Tiongson from an outlet called The Podium Finish. And he was the first one to really reach out to me and say, hey, you post on Twitter a lot. I would really like to see what you can do writing wise. And this was before I changed my major to journalism. And he really taught me kind of the basics and foundations of writing for sports and how that's done and what things look like. And he was really good at kind of molding that part of me. And then I would say another mentor is who I'm currently working with now alongside as opposed to now kind of working under, but Toby Christie, he liked my video content and was like, hey, I want you to have your own creative freedom, but I would love to have it on my platform. What are your thoughts? And from there, I've been able to go to the racetrack with him, and along with Racing America, we're both working for Racing America now. And I've learned so much from him about, hey, like here's maybe how to frame a question differently to get a better response. Or when it comes to writing, maybe here's a different angle you can take. Even to like, if I'm struggling with something, if I'm like, oh my God, this day was hard. I'm like, going to the racetrack isn't easy. It's tough a lot of the times. It's talking through those moments and being like, okay, how can I be better tomorrow? And I think for Daytona, that was a huge learning experience for me. I've covered races before, like I said, but there's nothing like covering the Daytona 500. It's bigger than life. It is chaos at everywhere you go. So I think from, those mentorships, I learned not only how to better my craft, but really how to feel more confident in what I'm doing in general. I mean, every time you're at the racetrack, everyone has a different assignment. Like I could be working on something completely different than the person next to me, and knowing like, that's okay. You're on your own path. You're doing your own thing. But yeah, you learn lots every day from everyone you work with.
Right. And okay, so we sent out a survey to get like some questions. And we have 3 questions for you, like different members in the club. So the
Okay.
first one is, what does a typical race day look like for you?
Oh my gosh. I'll take you through my 500 week. And I say this is typical in the sense that it's not. So I guess I should preface this by saying every race weekend is different. You're going to have your scheduled media availabilities that typically happen like the first day that you're there covering the race. So that happens in the morning or in between practice and qualifying. And typically when you're at the track, you're in the media center and you're just like transcribing what the drivers are saying, you're turning it into articles. And in my case, because I run socials and I'm more video focused, I'm trying to get video of these moments, right? So during that first part of your day that you're at the track, you are writing, transcribing, posting videos, editing that content together, and just sending it out. And then while this is all happening, the drivers are coming in and out from practice. So not only are you having to cover what the drivers are telling you, like in the media center, separate from the broadcast, but you're also having to put your attention towards what's happening in practice and cover that at the same exact time, which is stressful beyond belief. After that, they'll bring in the driver who typically practice the best, and they merge together practice and qualifying. So qualifying, and then there you go. And that's kind of day one. And typically, because NASCAR is like a 2-part weekend, day 1 and day 2, the second day is typically race day. And that morning's a bit more calm. You kind of already have your content out there. You've written your pre-race stories, you've scheduled them, and you kind of just get to enjoy. And I love that day to collect content, talk to fans, ask them, who's your winning pick, or kind of do some of that more fun content. And then when the race starts, you're everywhere. Some people like to stay in the media center to listen to the broadcast to really kind of understand what's going on, because once you leave the media center, you have your radio on you, if you have one, to follow the race, or you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, following everyone around like on pit road, trying to figure out what's going on and things like that. So that's, the race, it kind of is what you make it. And then afterwards, you're on pit road, gathering interviews, and then you're writing stories. And then by hopefully midnight, you're out of the media center and you're on your way to your hotel or on your flight home. But I guess all that to say, it's never a typical weekend. You're always going to expect the unexpected. And I think the biggest piece of advice I got for covering race weekends was, don't go in with a plan. Your plan is never going to work. And I'm a planner by heart. So that was really hard for me. Like the first race weekend I covered, I had a whole list of questions and stories that I wanted to get. Nothing worked out, just because what drivers were actually saying wasn't what I thought was going to happen. So I think that helped me become a better journalist during the race weekends. And for me during the week, it's just as unexpected with stories that come up and things like that. You have your scheduled posts and your scheduled promotions that you have to do for, a podcast that comes out. Maybe one of my content creators is creating content on a certain day, and I'm like, I have to have this schedule posted, or this post scheduled. But it's super unexpected. I know that was a long-winded answer, but it really is in this industry, especially on the media side of things. It is so unpredictable.
Gotcha. And on that same like wave of advice, what would you have to say for young women who want to become a part of this field?
Just do it. I think that's the advice I give to everybody, but being a woman in this industry is hard. You're looked at differently. You're not seen as legitimate. You really have to fight your way in, especially when it comes to knowledge. You're going to be questioned a lot more. So you almost have to do double the work that a man has to do, to be quite honest with you, to be taken seriously. And especially in the media field where I'm competing with other male content creators out there, there is, to my knowledge, no other prominent female motorsports, or I should say NASCAR content creator out there that's doing what I do. And that's very hard. There's other content creators that focus on like Formula One that have moved into the NASCAR space, which I think is fantastic, and they offer fantastic perspective. But for me, I'm kind of it. And so it's fighting my way through and being like, okay, if I'm putting out the same content as somebody else, but I'm getting crap for what I say, I'm like, look at the man over there that's saying the exact same thing. He's not getting crap. So what is it? Right. So it really is, you know, having thick skin and knowing that you're going to get backlash, you're going to get criticism because of who you are. And that sucks. But with that, keep being who you are, because you're going to get people that love your content, love who you are, love your personality. And even if you want to get into motorsports on the I guess, engineering side of things, the marketing side of things, the same thing applies. I think what's really nice about where the industry is headed, and especially with like the Women in Motorsports North America organization and all these other organizations that are popping up, is they are really helping young women get into the sport, like, and really supporting them and mentoring them and kind of offering them their foot in the door, which I think is wonderful. And so actually, funny enough, I won a National Motorsports Press Association award. Came out of nowhere, but I won it 2 weeks ago. And Cindy Sisson, who leads the Women in Motorsports North America division, came up and gave me her card and was like, hey, like, if you want to get lunch, like, would love to talk to you. We want to support women like you. So let's talk and see how we can help you. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is awesome. So there are people out there and wonderful organizations like this that want to help bring more women in, because we offer so much. And because, I mean, we do work, I don't want to say we work harder. We have to work harder a lot of the time, right? But just do it. If you have a podcast that you wanted to start and you're like, oh, I don't know, like, I just do it. Grab your phone and you'll get better over time. Nothing's going to start perfect. Nothing's going to be 100% the first time you do something. But if you're passionate about it, learn it. Truly. That's my advice.
That was really helpful. And then how do you think like your feminist perspective like really plays into your content or like your work ethic?
That's a good question. I think the work ethic piece of it is, I feel like I have to learn more than my male counterparts, in the sense that if I'm questioned about my knowledge, I more so am likely to have to back up my knowledge, as opposed to my male counterpart who could just say something and it's fine. For me, I'm going to have to back it up. Funny enough, not totally related, but kind of related, but sometimes you'll know more than the drivers if you do the work. Like there's the Xfinity fastest lap that NASCAR just added. And I had to explain that to a driver because he had no clue that the NASCAR added that. And he's a driver, right? In the Xfinity series. So it was being in that moment, being like him questioning, like, what is that? What is that? Like, I don't know if they're adding that. I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like, here's the knowledge and stuff like that. And he's like, oh shoot. Okay. And then like my male counterparts ended up backing me up. They're like, she's right. Like they did add that. And you're like, awesome. I knew the knowledge. I had everything in hand and I was good to go. But all that to say, like, because of the female perspective and because I am who I am, you do have to work harder. And that fuels my work ethic to an almost unhealthy degree of never stopping working. Which a lot of this is also take care of yourself, please. Don't do what I do. But like take care of yourself, take time to rest, because you're not going to be your best self if you're not 100% in taking care of yourself. But the other part of that too is just, trying to be more confident in myself. Because I think when you're in this industry and you're amongst a bunch of males that are always questioning you, you're going to feel less confident. So it's also kind of trying to find that confidence too.
Those are really great answers. Thank you. And with our remaining time, Emma or Alexa, do you have any questions?
I was gonna ask, like, what do you think is like the most rewarding aspect of like your work and what you do?
Oh, that's good. Okay, so I have like three mini answers, and I'm probably gonna forget the third, but I had a bunch of like health issues, like my first year and a half in college, and I had to actually leave. And I was diagnosed with a disorder called POTS. And it completely changed my life. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to follow my dream. I want to be a pit reporter. Like, that's my dream. I want to do that more than anything in the world. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to ever get there health wise. I don't know skill wise if I can get there. And I think every time I go to the racetrack, I'm like, holy crap, like you didn't think you'd be here like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So like going to Daytona, the crazy thing is when I got there, it didn't hit where I was like, I'm just here to work and I'm good to go. Like I wasn't like freaking out, fangirling, whatever it is. Like I didn't, that mindset wasn't there. I walked into the track, not walked into the track. This was like literally they were going to the green flag for the Daytona 500. I've been there at this point for like 6 days. And at that moment, I just started crying because I was like, holy crap, like you did it. Because a lot of people don't get to cover that race. And especially now that credentialing within NASCAR is so tricky because of all these independent outlets that are trying to do it, the abuse of the credentialing system, like it's hard to get in there. And so when the green flag dropped, I was like, oh my God, like this is gratifying. It feels like all that I went through personally has paid off. All the extra work that I did paid off. The just pumping out like podcast episodes that I did on my phone for like 2 months before, like I felt like I was like, okay, maybe I could do this for a living, like paid off. So I think for me, a lot of the gratification comes from being at the track and kind of being like, if it wasn't for all the sleepless nights, blood, sweat, and tears I put into this when I was at home, I want to be able to do this. I would say to the community that, you know, I've built through my platform has also been very gratifying, and the connections that I made in the industry are gratifying. I think there's a lot of times in this industry, female or not, that you are going to be put in situations where you're uncomfortable. You're going to be put with people or working with people that you're maybe not comfortable with, or in situations where you feel like it kind of got burned a little bit. And that's unfortunately sometimes the nature of the beast. And that's also the media industry, which I hate. I love when the media industry is more collaborative than it is competitive. And that's what I think our generation is trying to do, which I love. But I've been really lucky to work with people that not only care about me and care about my work, but care about me as a person and want to make sure that I'm good, I'm okay, I'm getting a lot out of the experiences that I'm given. And that even goes down to my producer at Racing America. She was like, I don't think I've ever asked you, but like, what's your goal? Like, what do you want? Like, what ultimately in your career are you looking for? And I was like, well, I kind of want to be a pit reporter. She goes, okay, we can make that happen. Let's start now. And I'm like, okay, cool. And like, it's the gratification from those connections and relationships and being with people that believe in you is what I love about my job. And learning these drivers on a more personal level to tell their stories in a better way is what I love about my job. This job is a hobby for me. It started as a hobby, but now it's also my job. I eat, sleep, breathe, live it. And it's been like the coolest freaking thing ever.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have a quick question too. Firstly, apologize for the fire alarm. Don't know what it was doing.
Hey, you're good.
I was like, oh my gosh, she's wearing headphones too. I was like, because literally the second I showed my laptop, it turned off, and I was like, okay, thanks, timing. Like, appreciate that. But I know you talked about how you were beat reporting in college and how like you had to like learn sports on the go. So I'm also like a sports journalism major here at UF, and I feel like every week I go through a midlife crisis of if I want to stick with it because I
Yeah.
want to become one, but I don't know what I want to do. And so I have like kind of like two like questions. So like one, like how you fought like the imposter syndrome of like knowing what you want to do, and two, like how you figured out you want to do beat reporting because I feel like there's so many things you can do within like the media side and the journal like sports journalism is so broad. So I was wondering.
No, you're good. I think the one thing I felt at college, I was like, there's no motorsports here. Like it was all basketball, hockey, whatever. And I'm like, well, shoot, that's not what I want to do. So that's when I really dug into my own podcast. And I was like, hey, if my school's not offering something that I'm really passionate about, I'm going to do it outside the classroom. And that changed my life because I was able, well, in college, I was doing an internship. I was working a full-time job at the university. And then I had two other jobs outside of that, an internship and then my podcast. I don't recommend that. That was awful, like to do all that at once, but it was really helpful in the long run because like doing the stuff outside the classroom helped me kind of figure out my path and what I wanted to do. And then I used what I had at my college, like, you know, learning sports on the fly, volleyball, hockey, things like that, more so as added experience to learn, hey, what is it like to actually work in a live broadcast, not podcasting, but a live sports broadcast. And there's imposter syndrome with that. Again, like I said, I didn't know a darn thing about hockey 2 weeks before I actually was on air live doing ringside reporting. And I was like, I shouldn't be here. I haven't watched hockey my entire life like some of the people in this room with me have. But because of my work outside the classroom and doing my on-camera podcast, it got me the opportunity to do this. And that's typically what you're going to see. In NASCAR, for instance, I don't want to, well, I'm not 100% sure if she had a background in motorsports beforehand or not, but one of the women that is in the motorsports industry and has done some stuff with Fox, she started off covering like basketball, the Charlotte Hornets, and then she was brought in to do NASCAR. And I don't know if she knew a lot about NASCAR beforehand, but she had that on-air talent and was already involved with Fox to where she was able to, work on the NASCAR broadcast. But part of the industry is you have to learn stuff on the fly. You're going to have to learn sports on the fly, and you might not be great at it at first. I was not good at covering hockey at first. I sucked at it. Admittedly, I was not good. But as you learn more about the players, spend time with them during the week, trying to learn their stories, literally just watch so many YouTube videos about rules and things, like you're going to get really bored of it. But like the more you do that, the more confident you're going to be. But it takes time. So I think when it comes to the imposter syndrome, I don't think it ever goes away, quite honestly. And at some point I would like to say it does go away, but for me, it hasn't. And I'm interviewing Cup Series drivers and I'm like, I don't deserve to be here. But a lot of it is trying to validate yourself and say, hey, I did the work behind the scenes to get to this point. Somebody else might have done the same exact work as me and might not be here, but I'm here. And the people that have brought me on see the value in what I do and what I bring. And that should be enough. And that oftentimes is what I'm trying to be like. I'm like, okay, I don't think I should be here, but if I'm here for a reason. Right. And then when it comes to finding the kind of the beat reporting, it's just kind of something that I kind of just fell into. And that has a lot to do with like social media and things like that. Social media reporting is really beat reporting, right? You're posting things in like a 1-minute reel, a 2-minute reel, whatever that is. You can't cover somebody's entire story in that amount of time, right? And I like that quick news. You get out information really quick. You get quick responses from it. And from that on social media, people ask questions and you can follow up with a video about the questions that people had. And so I think beat reporting for me was a more interactive way to engage with an audience, which is ultimately what I like about journalism and broadcasting, is that engagement you get with your community. And it offers a lot of variety too. And I'm not somebody who really likes to focus in on one thing. Like I like to kind of have my focus scattered a little bit just to kind of feel like I'm accomplishing a lot or I'm covering a lot. And so for my personality, beat reporting just kind of fit. But just know if you're trying to figure out like what sport to cover, what do you want to do, like that's totally fine. And you might change your mind in a week from now about what you want to do. And that's okay too. I change my mind all the time, but it's knowing that like if you're focused on, like you said, like the media, the broadcast side of things, there's so much you can do with that. So I guess for me, it's don't stop trying things out. And don't feel bad if you change your mind. And if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, because you're going to feel that at some points, but just know you're valid in what you are currently doing and that you're meant to be there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, is there any last things you want to touch on or say before we head out, Taylor?
Oh goodness. I don't think so, but I appreciate you all for having me. I appreciate it. I hope what I said, even though some of the tangents I went on were helpful. And if anyone ever like needs anything, whether it's, connections, advice, whatever that is, like just reach out. You have my email and you can share it with everyone, or my LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, I guess. If you guys need any advice or whatever. I know it's like ending a YouTube video, follow me on LinkedIn, stuff like that. But anyhow, no, but it was great to meet you all. And I appreciate your time. And just like I said, don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to just go out and do what you want to do. Carve your own path. If there's not a path there, carve it. And that's what we have to do as women in the industry. Like you have to. So just don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated by it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you all. Have a good
Great
evening.
to meet you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.